Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the Animation Today podcast for January 8th. I am your host, Mark Pudleiner. And again, welcome. We have a couple articles to go over for January 8th, but first, we just want to say thank you for any of you that have come by our animationtoday.ca website and also our YouTube channel, and you've subscribed or joined. We really appreciate that support. And if any of you guys have any family or friends that you think might like what we're doing here, if you want to spread the word, we'd really appreciate that as well. So maybe this little community will grow over time. So again, thank you. We really love that you're joining us. And as we go forward and sort of discover these articles together. And so let's begin with the first article for January 8th. It is this. It's Walt Disney is awarded from France their highest medal, the Legion of Honor Medal. And this is back in 1936. And I do have a photo of Walt Disney here in Burbank. This is him in Burbank receiving the medal. I found this article a couple days later in the newspapers in the Boston Globe back in 1936 that explains France and them honoring Walt Disney. I went and just highlighted a couple sentences here as it reads. Many a personage famed in history has worn the ribbon of the Legion with distinction. It is only fitting, therefore, that the honor should be visited at last upon Mickey Mouse. For that, of course, is what the French government really means. The pretense of bestowing it upon Mr. Walt Disney for creating a new art form in which goodwill is spread throughout the world. So basically, France is going, let's honor Walt Disney, the company, the animation they're doing. It's so loved as regarding, people out there, the audience that are just taking in what they're doing and it's just, so positive. And again, it's also the mouse, as it says, Mr. Disney is the creator of Mickey, but it is Mickey himself who has won the bays and laurels because, Mickey Mouse, that character, that personality, the stories he's going through and how he's acting and, the entertainment that they're creating, it was just so loved by the audience. So I think Walt Disney, this is, France was recognizing Disney and the company for what they're doing, and this is the medal of the Legion of Honor medal here. It's really pretty. It's a beautiful medal, but they're also recognizing Disney for the connection with France. I think Disney had a connection with France. This is him in the end of World War I. He was stationed in France. This is when he was a part of the Red Cross, but there's also the connection when Walt Disney found out about his family, and he did the history and went back in time, you can go all the way back, and it basically his name, Walt Disney, that family name originated back in France. And so even the French government, this is a quick little video of a ceremony where they're honoring Walt Disney in Normandy, France, where his name originated. They're unveiling a plaque here. And so it's a ceremony they had in 2016. So again, Walt Disney was from what I get in the late 40s, early 50s, he went on a bit of a tour. This is him in England. He started to go to these little villages and towns from where he knew his family originated from and traveled through in his path of going from France all the way, of course, into the United States today. So again, I thought it'd be interesting, and I'm not a historian, but I did put together a quick little collection here of this path of the Disney name. And it all, from what I get, it all started here starting with the Battle of Hastings, which was in the year 1066. So way back when you had this William, the Duke of Normandy in France, he wanted to be the ruler of England. And so he had to battle this guy, the Anglo-Saxon king, King Harold Godwinson. And so they went at it like a boxing match. Who's going to win? And so someone lost. And it happened to be, well, as far as, showing you who lost the Battle of Hastings in the history of Disney, this is a famous tapestry that they have in France. It's called the Bayeux Tapestry. It's over 70 meters long. It's huge. And it's a tourist place. You can go, you can listen to headphones. And they tell you the story in this really long tapestry as it goes through. And it explains the story of history, which also includes the Battle of Hastings and what happened. And this is what happened in that tapestry that King Harold from England, he got shot. He got shot in the eye with an arrow, as it shows there, right there. There's the arrow in his eye. And this is another artist's painting that shows King Harold dying. It had to be a pretty horrible death, getting shot in the eye with an arrow. But that's what happened. So as we go forward, William, the Duke of Normandy, is now ruling England. But because during the Battle of Hastings, the connection with Disney is this: there was a father and son. The father's name was Hughes Suhard, and his son Robert. They came from a little town by Normandy. I do have how to pronounce it here. Let me go ahead and open this up here. This is how you pronounce it, where they're from.
Isigny-sur-Mer.
So Isigny-sur-Mer. So that's Isigny-sur-Mer is where the father and son came from in by Normandy, France, and they fought really bravely. And so William, the new ruler of England, he wanted to honor them, and he gave them the official title of the Lords of Isigny. And so they, instead of going back to France, they stayed in England. They from what my notes are, they decided to settle in Lincolnshire, England. And so now you have these Lords of Isigny, the father and son. Fast forward like hundreds of years. This is going forward. The name Isigny, but then over time it changed to the name Disney. And that's where in London, or not London, but in England, this town here. So let's go forward. We started in France. They ended up in England, the Disney name. The descendants of Walt Disney ended up in England. Some ended up going to Ireland. Some stayed in England, but some ended up going to Ireland, which was Walt Disney's family. And then some of his family then ended up going to Canada. And then, of course, they settled in the States. So that's the path of the Walt Disney name. So starting in France here, this is where it is right there, that little town. There's Paris, and there's a little town there. Isigny-sur-Mer is where the father and son originated from. And they actually have a little museum there that's honoring Walt Disney. And that's the museum that they have today. And in that museum, there's the plaque that I showed earlier on when they were revealing it. And it's just a quote from Walt Disney saying, "To the youngsters of today, I say, believe in the future. The world is getting better. There's still plenty of opportunities." So again, that's Walt Disney in a quote. And so this is the little, it's like a little museum they have. It's not really big. So they only have a few little rooms, et cetera, with a few Disney stuff there. But this is on behalf of the father and son that started and lived in that area, joined the Battle of Hastings, and went forward. So now they stayed in England. So this is the history of England. And this is Walt Disney here that's visiting one of the towns, Norton Disney, and back in 1949. So this is a home video. This is Walt Disney. He's walking. There's his two daughters. There's his wife, and they're going on tour and looking at the past history of where that Disney name came from. So after France, going to England, so the one thing that they got when they were visiting, their past history, and they were visiting Norton Disney in that area, was that they were discovering, they came across the tombs of his past descendants, Sir William and his wife, Lady Joan Disney, and where they were buried and where they're kept here. And they came across these tombs, and what Disney discovered, which goes into the design of today at the Disney parks and also at the beginning of the Disney movies, is those three lions. They were part of like the emblem on that shield. So he really liked that design. So this is a image of the shield that's actually at Disneyland, Disney World, and Disney incorporated the three lions, part of the family crest. So that was the one thing that he took away from the designs and those tombs. So again, his family ended up going to, some stayed in England and some moved to Ireland. And so when he went to Ireland, it went to this place, this descendants went to Gowran. I think this was his great grandfather was born here in Gowran. You can see where Dublin is there. So it's all the way down here in this place here. And this is an old photo of in a late 19th century street scene of Gowran. And, small little village there. when he went to Ireland, it affected him, and he loved it, and it was a really a great visit. And back in the old days, this is back in the 40s, they used to have, during movies, they would have these little, as they say, a little special sort of shorts. And I found this in the newspaper, this Walt Disney Visits Ireland. So this is the short of Walt Disney visiting Ireland. They would show this before movies back in the 40s. So let's watch the short video here that the audience watching a movie, Holiday in Mexico, they saw. This is one of the shorts that they would watch. And this, of course, is Disney in Ireland.
Mr. Walt Disney's visit to Ireland has naturally aroused a lot of interest. He's seen here with President O'Kelly, next to whom is Mrs. Disney, then Mrs. O'Kelly, and Professor Delarche. And, of course, Mr. Disney visited Mr. De Valera, who was no doubt able to put him on the track of what he was looking for, leprechauns. Everyone, in fact, Mr. De Valera, the professor, and the president, everyone, I'm sure, was ready with help and advice.
I don't think he was...
But I'm afraid the only leprechaun we contrived to film was this model presented to the Disneys. My dictionary says a leprechaun is a small brownie that helps Irish housewives.
I don't think he was looking for leprechauns. But anyways, let's just go with it. So that's the short that they showed in front of the movies back in, the late 40s. So, of course, the visit of, he loved the visit, and he actually, this is a few years later, and is an ad for a movie, 10 years later in 1959 for Walt Disney's full-length feature, Darby O'Gill and the Little People. So again, you can tell that, by visiting these past family locations and taking in the warmth of the people and just the whole atmosphere, it did make Walt Disney want to, put it into his movies. So again, this is the Irish connection. I found this is a website by this lady here, and I have to give her credit because these are her photos. And I found that they actually have the cemetery where the past Disney, family members are stayed, is a little depressing in Clonmelsh. If you look at this is it here, you can see the signs as burial place of Walt Disney's ancestor. I was a little surprised to see there's the cemetery from Dublin. You can see where it is here down at the bottom. But if you ever want to visit, I expected it to be in a little better shape. Like this is it here. Of course, it's really old, but it looks really run down and broken up. So again, this is Abigail Disney, who departed this life, in the year 1746, age 28, and then this is another one, Mary Disney. So again, you can see it just looks a little sad. I just expected it to be different. I don't know why. I just expected it to be different. It's just odd seeing. Well, I guess it's just the way it is. So there you go. It's really old, and that's the way it is. So then some of the family moved over to Canada. And his father was born in a little town called Bluevale in Ontario, and this is Toronto here. So if anybody's in Toronto wants to, or there's Kitchener, but you can see where Bluevale is right there, and that's where Walt Disney's dad, when he was really young, and he went to school. He went to school in Goderich right there. So it's not that far away, right? So this is a small school that his dad went to in Goderich, Ontario. I do have an interview with Walt Disney talking to the CBC really briefly. It's like a 2-minute video here, and it's just talking about his dad's connection with Canada in Ontario here. So let's watch that.
Speaking of Canadian stories, Walt, let's talk about your father, who was born in Ontario and lived a good part of his life in Canada before he moved across the 49th parallel and began producing sons.
Yes, he was born in a little town, I think they call it Bluevale. It's right out of Goderich. And the Disney family were Anglo-Irish. And they migrated over there in the 1830s, which makes me feel that the Disneys had foresight, because it was 1840 when they had the potato famine in Ireland, but they were smart enough to get out before that. And my father was born there, and he was raised there and went to school there. In fact, he went to school in Goderich. And he was about 20 years old when my grandfather went to Kansas out in the same area where General Eisenhower, ex-President Eisenhower, came from. And he was an alien, of course, being a Canadian, and he had to buy his land. He couldn't homestead.
Tell me, Walt, have you ever been back to your father's homestead in Canada?
Yes, I finally made it. I took Mrs. Disney along. She's not too interested in ancestors and things, you know. When we got up there, she really fell in love with the town of Godwinson. It was a beautiful little town. And she was quite happy about it. But I wanted to find the homestead where my grandfather, you know, went out and cut the trees down and pulled the rocks apart, and where my father was born. So they gave me directions, and everybody was trying to be helpful and everything. And Mrs. Disney reluctantly went along, and I found this old place, and I said, this is it. It was really deserted. There were cows running through the house and chickens around. And I had my camera, and I got out, and I photographed that thing from every angle. And when I got through, I found out I'd photographed the wrong homestead. Well, ever since, Mrs. Disney has never forgot. She tells that to everybody about when Walt went up to Canada, and he photographed the wrong homestead.
That's what happens. Yep. Your wife will keep reminding you when those mistakes happen. Anyways, that's funny, hearing that little story that Walt was taking photos of the wrong house. And of course, you know, Mrs. Disney doesn't forget that. So anyways, so going forward then, Walt's dad moved the family as he got older to the States, and they ended up going to the birthplace here. This is where Walt was born, in Chicago. And from there, he was there for around 5 years, and then he moved to Maceline, Missouri. And this is Walt and his brother Roy visiting because they lived there. And then from there, they moved to their family home in Kansas City here. And from this, in Kansas City, this is where, when Walt was older, started, you know, his own company. So I thought it would be interesting to show these family locations. So let's go to this. I have this here. I'll close this out. So this is the birthplace of Walt Disney. This is in Chicago. So this is the place here. There it is right there. When I click that, let's go on the street level here. Right there. Boom. And there we are. So there's Walt's. Where is Walt's house? That's not it. There it is right there. That's Walt's house right there. So this is the corner. So this is where he was born, right there. This is the house where Walt Disney was born. There's the Disney Family Avenue, Honorary. There it is. And there's the house. And this is the house here. When you go in, let's look down the street. So this is the house where he was born. Hey, get out of there. So anyways, let's go ahead, and you can click this if you go to the website, and you can go into it. And this allows you to go see inside. So let's go ahead and click see inside. And so this is inside Walt Disney's house where he was born. This is up the second floor, of course. They brought us on here. So sorry, I'm going to go over here, and it looks like there's a kitchen upstairs. This is the stair. I think this is the washroom there. I think it's, I don't know if we can get into it. No, this is the stairs that lead down then. So the kitchen is behind us. We're going down the stairs here. And so this is the living room there. So this is where Walt Disney's family was when he's born. See, there's a little picture of Walt there and his sister. Beautiful. So again, yeah, it has those curved arches that those houses back then had back then. So again, Walt Disney's family house, and you can leave and go through. It's sort of cool. You can go out and, you know, knock on their door. Okay, so from there, let's go to their when Walt moved, he moved over to his second house here, and he stayed here. I think it was at 5 years old. At 5 years old, he came here to Missouri. And so this is the place there. So this is out in the farmlands, right? Like this is a very completely different feel from where he came from. So, and again, you know, this is the house right there as we go forward right there. And if you look at this sign, it says, you know, it's the Walt Disney Family Farmhouse. Here, I'll go over to this side of the street. We can have a better look at it. So this is the farm. It's really pretty, right? Like, so this is where Walt was. He was probably looking out that window right there when he was a young boy. And then from there, they ended up moving to the last residence here. And this is in Kansas City. And this is the family home here. Let's go ahead and click that. That's the family home. And if I go to the street view, this is a little, you know, from where they were. I don't know what it looked like back then, but it's definitely, you know, it's not the open farmland anymore. And this is the house here. This is the house here where Walt grew. And this, in his family, he was older here, I think, you know, as he grew up as a teenager and went to school. And so, you know, I'm sure Walt sat on that porch many a time and looked out those top windows. If we go over this way and look back at the house, you can see what the house looked like there. So again, that's Walt Disney's residence back in Kansas City in Missouri. And then from there, he went forward, started his own company, and then, of course, made his way to California. So I just wanted to show you that. I think it's sort of interesting to see what his locations were. I guess he sat on this porch and wasn't the best view. I think that building was probably there at the same time, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, let's go back to this. Getting back to France, honoring Walt Disney. This is an article in the Boston Globe. It says, Mr. Walt Disney was awarded the Legion of France. And this is just a little, you know, cartoon or a little drawing they have of him being kissed. And so I'll end with this little video. This is a video that explains the, it's explaining, let me just hit pause for a second. This is a screen snapshot. This is a thing that they would play in front of movies as well. A little bit of news, headlines. So let's watch this play out here.
Here's Walt Disney, back in the days when Mickey Mouse was just a mouse. We were on hand to record the ceremony when the French consul decorated Disney for his outstanding contributions to screen entertainment. If Walt seems ill at ease, it's small wonder. Few actors can play a love scene of this kind without being self-conscious.
Like, I don't get the wording. A few actors like a love scene of like this kind.
If Walt seems ill at ease, it's small wonder. Few actors can play a love scene of this kind without being self-conscious.
Okay. Anyways, let's go ahead, and that's the article for Walt Disney receiving the Legion of Honor here. So let's continue on.